Do you believe there are six-year-olds today that could be aware of marriage enough to actually make a decision to marry at 6?
I believe,
to a grown man?
I believe that individuals like that, as I said, are exceptional. So I don't believe your average 6-year-old.
How exceptional is it? How exceptional is it?
It's like probably 1 in a million or something.
1 in a million.
And that's why I said that Aisha
again,
was a
you're
very
saying that
exceptional
Aisha
woman.
is the savant. Like
Well,
some...
yes, I am. What's wrong with that?
Let's have a debate.
Happy New Year, Luca.
Happy New Year, Luca.
Yeah.
I hope you had a Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
So I just want to say,
Yeah, very Muslim Christmas.
I just want to say, at the very least, regardless of what Lucas says, at the very least he is willing to appear on camera and to talk, which you have to be honest, shows balls. It shows that he has backbone,
There's plenty of Muslims
and he is
who are
willing
willing to
to.
debate you.
Can you find me any other Muslim? Find me any Muslim here who will chat with me now. I think you are the only one.
Okay, well-
I think you're unique in that, which is good. I
thank you.
commend you for it. So anyway, what would you like to talk about? I'll let you talk because
Okay,
I think it's
thought
important.
there was a question that you were addressing that.
In regards to what I was talking about,
Our hands are running away from the debate. Is that all?
or
No,
what
I
were
mean
you
a
talking
question
about?
about Islam or about the Bible. I mean, you were debating something about the Book of Numbers.
Oh, we can talk about that. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. You
Okay,
probably know
right.
more about it than I do.
Fair, that's honest.
Okay.
So he was trying to bring up the usual argument. This is a typical Sammy argument. I've known Sammy for a while now. It's a very popular one. He would say that you cannot talk about Surah Al-Talaq, ayah 4. Sorry, I should be looking at you, not the camera. And because that perhaps is disturbing for some Muslims, he says it doesn't matter because in Numbers 31, verse 18, we have a very similar thing, which is that it says that you keep the little ones for yourself. And he's saying, although it's not explicit, it is implicit that this is a form of sex slavery.
Okay, you're saying it's not.
I'm saying it's not.
Okay.
And I will make two arguments as to why. First of all, the context of what Numbers 31 is about. Where do we find the context? We find it in Numbers 25. And Numbers 25, it says that because of a plague that had been introduced into Israel from the Midianites, 24,000 people had died. Okay. And it was through the Midianite women, no worries, the Midianite women who were having sex and yoking the Israelites to have sex with them and to worship pagan gods. Now, some scholars would actually go, well, this plague might have actually been a sexually transmitted disease, because that would make sense given the sexual behavior of the Midianites and what they were engaging with in worship of Baal.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting in Numbers 25 is that it says that the most abomination that they are committing is because they are having sex with these women. That's the issue.
Because the Israelites have.
Yes, the Israelites are having sex with these women. That is the issue. And so in Numbers 31, the judgment of the Lord comes upon them, and the Lord gives a commandment to wipe the Midianites out. Now, the Midianites actually appear again in Judges 6. So it wasn't a complete elimination of the Midianites, because we read about them again in Judges 6, which occurs later chronologically after Numbers.
Okay.
So they weren't completely destroyed, but they were engaged in battle, and there were many that were killed.
Okay.
But the commandment of the Lord was not what they did.
Right.
Instead, they kept livestock, they kept possessions, and they kept slaves.
Right. So what does this keep?
What does this keep? Right. So let me explain. The reason why we know for a fact this wasn't referring to those whom they would have sex with is because the very principle at which they went to war with them in the first place was because they were having sex. Right. In other words, this war was to stop that from happening.
Yeah. So then what does that
So
mean?
that means that those whom they take as slaves, the last thing they would then do is have sex with them, because the entire purpose of the war was to punish them for having sex with them.
Yeah.
You wouldn't fight someone because they've given a plague due to sexual transmitted diseases and then choose to have sex with those whom are
Well,
left.
it's interesting you say that.
Because that would be defeating the very point
don't you
of
think-
what you were commanded to do.
Don't you think you could, if you're going to read into it like that?
Well, that's not reading into it. That's what it says.
okay.
The sexually transmitted thing is a modern interpretation of a plague, but yes.
But I mean, maybe little ones would mean women who haven't yet had sex because they're too young.
Yes.
Therefore, they wouldn't. If your theory of a sexually transmitted disease, they wouldn't therefore have any sexually transmitted disease.
Well, I have no confidence that these people would have had a understanding that wouldn't permit them to do that.
Okay.
You're talking about people who were following Baal,
Okay.
and we know, for example, that they were offering children in sacrifice.
Yeah.
They were burning them. Yes.
Right.
We also know that they did pretty horrible things with children.
Yeah.
So
I
from
mean,
that, you can infer that potentially that was the thing. But my point is this. There was no intent on having sex. Also, that's argument one. Argument two is that Deuteronomy 21 verse 10 explicitly says that if you were to take a female captive, to have sex with them, you have to first marry them.
Okay.
And to marry them, there is a specific principle involved to do this.
Deuteronomy came later, didn't it? It wasn't.
Yes, after Numbers, yes.
That bit of the law wasn't revealed at the same time, was it? As the law before Numbers.
You could argue
In
not.
Exodus.
You could argue
Right,
not.
there you go.
Right, but my point is I see no reason to think they were engaging with this, and if it was condemned.
Yeah.
That's my point.
So why don't you give the same benefit of the doubt to Muslims when it comes to these sort of matters?
Well, let's contrast it. So my issue, as you know, is Surah Al-Talaq, Surah 65 ayah 4.
Okay.
Now, that surah is something that is as binding as every other surah, and it is explicit, and as far as I'm aware, it's not contradicted. Or there's no later or abrogated, as far as I'm aware.
It might be. I wouldn't.
If you can give me an argument that Surah 65 ayah 4 is abrogated, and that's the surah in which
what does it say?
it says that there is an iddah, a waiting period, for those of whom have not yet reached puberty.
Yeah.
Now,
The thing is,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that the Sharia would explain, this in detail.
Well, the Sharia does. Now, I've been looking into this because I can't believe it, in all honesty, because I thought that surely at some point in the medieval period they would have changed their mind on this, but they haven't. So let me give you an example. I mentioned to you before the Reliance of the Traveller, which was a popular Shafi school of fiqh. That came during the medieval period. I believe it was either the 14th or the 13th century. That explicitly, in chapter 9, part 2, explicitly says that yes, you can. It is sunnah to do
you
so.
can.
Actually, no, they say it's not sunnah, but it is permissible.
Marry prepubescent girls.
Yes.
Well, you
I think
better show
it's
me the text.
I think it's actually Well, I've told you where it is. You can find
You
it.
seem a bit uncertain about what it actually says.
It's actually in the context of whether a prepubescent person can have sex with a person who's gone through puberty.
Okay.
That's the explicit thing it says there.
It specifically says it's okay.
It says it is not innovation, but it is also not sunnah. It is permissible.
Okay, so it says it's not sunnah.
Yeah.
So that to me would be saying
The reason it's not sunnah is because Muhammad.
Muhammad didn't
Actually,
do
no,
it.
sorry, no, he did. I was about to say he wasn't a young boy when he had sex with someone older than him, but I don't think that's the context.
With
So,
Khadija, well, what do you mean?
no, yeah, well, I'm saying with Aisha, it wasn't the other way around.
Right, but
That's
if
what
it
I'm
says
saying,
it's
but-
not sunnah, that means it's not something that the Prophet did.
Well, the issue is that other
Which
schools.
means that Aisha wasn't prepubescent.
Well, what I'm saying is it explicitly says it's permissible.
Well, no, you're saying it says it's not sunnah.
No, they have different categories, right? In Islam, and different, there's different categories. There's innovation, there's bid'ah, there is sunnah, which means you can have an exact example in the sunnah, finding it, and then you can do it because it's permissible.
Right, so I'm a Sunni Muslim. That means I follow the sunnah.
Yes,
So
but you
that
can also
means-
do what's permissible. So
No.
Shafi is Sunni, yes?
Yes.
Right. So this is a Shafi manual.
Okay.
I can also show you the same thing that does say it's Sunnah in Hanafi. In I can't pronounce it.
Okay.
I'll have to figure out how to pronounce it. But there is another one.
Hanbali.
No, so in that Hanafi fiqh, there is a very popular manual called I can't remember the name. Sorry, mate. I'll have to check it up on my phone.
Yeah.
It's a very popular one. It's considered to be one of the best ones.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I think I've heard of it. Is it called the Ornaments or something like that?
What do you want to say that out? Yeah, otherwise.
Is
There
it
we go.
the
Nice.
Heavenly Ornaments? Is it that one?
It's called a guidance and a light. It's Al something, a guidance. But I'll put a link to it, and you can have a look in there.
Thanks. Yeah.
On my channel, I've quoted from it, so you can see,
Alright, I'll
you
have
can
a
find
look.
it there.
Is it Chris's?
Chris's Speaker's Corner, yeah. But I mean, realistically, I don't see any good argument to think that this isn't permissible in Islam.
Yeah.
If all of the, well, I say actually, no, I'm going to say that because I haven't done my homework fully yet. I know Hanafi and I know Shafi schools say it's permissible at least.
Okay. So what I'll say about that is in Sharia, when it
Yeah.
says that something is permissible, for example, I believe there's a hadith or a Quran ayah where Allah said, of the things that He's made permissible, divorce is the most hated. So
Yeah,
that means
yeah, yeah.
that ideally Muslims shouldn't divorce their wives, but however,
You can, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So likewise, with what you're talking about, it's not something A that's encouraged, B something that the Prophet did. It's
Whoa,
something
wait,
that
wait,
is,
wait. You're using loaded language there because when you say it's not encouraged, how do you mean by that?
because it's not sunnah, so that means
wait,
it's not
according to
something the Prophet-
one,
well, it's not something
I found one that said it
the Prophet
was.
did. Right. So there's
To be honest with you, I don't know why Shafi says it. Well, the uncertainty is only about whether or not it's sunnah, not whether or not it's permissible. And everyone I've seen says it's permissible.
Well, apart from that one manual that you said.
No, that says it's
okay.
permissible.
Okay.
It says it wasn't sooner, because they're different categories.
Okay. Well, obviously we're talking about things here which, I would prefer to stick to, the Quran and the example of the Prophet Muhammad.
Sure, all right, those two things.
The most reliable, reliable sources.
Absolutely fine, but you understand that fiqh comes from those things.
I do, yes.
And the scholars are quoting those things, and those scholars know the Quran 1,000 times better than me,
Right.
1,000 times better than you.
Yeah, but you know that the four madhabs are in disagreement about these things, like you said.
Well, most madhabs actually are fairly uniform. They disagree about certain things.
Mentioned.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is it's not as if one's saying, yes, you can, and the other one says, no, you can't. It's not that kind of disagreement.
Yeah.
So we can establish that in fiqh, generally, Shafi and Hanafi, there is at least understanding that you can do this, and that to me I find reprehensible. And I think you do.
Well, the fact is, when I read the Bible, I mean, I don't know if would you consider yourself a Bible-only Christian, or do you take what the Church says as authority as well?
Well,
Catholic Church says. Or?
I'm still looking into my opinion on this. Okay. I would say that Scripture is of an immense importance and something that I follow. Okay. I also think the traditions themselves are important. Right. And they can cast light on how the early church saw the Scripture.
Right. So what I would say to that is, since the Bible does not explicitly, like with the Quran, does not specifically condemn, having sex with prepubescent girls, you would agree that, according to that logic, if you were a Bible-only Christian, you could say that it was permissible too.
No, because you're comparing two different things. One is an explicit statement saying you can have sex with prepubescent children, well, divorce them, which implies sex. And the other one is simply an argument from silence, saying there's no explicit verse in the Bible that says, by the way, guys, don't have sex with prepubescent kids. The thing is, though, is that there is Bible verses that give us an understanding that you are required to go through puberty. For example, it's gone through my head now.
Are you okay talking about this? I don't mind, but...
Oh, sorry, I'm alright. I'm trying to get you in this.
Yeah,
I don't want you to get wet.
I'm getting a bit wet, yeah.
Sorry, man.
It's alright. Anyway.
I believe it's Judges 16, verse 6. If you can check that for me. No, it might be Ezekiel. Whoa. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to check.
Okay,
but basically, it gives an analogy of Israel as a woman coming into womanhood, and it explains that God passed over Israel when she was a child and saw her as a child, and then God came away and then came back again later, passing over Israel, and now Israel had become a woman, and it gives the example that she had developed breasts, that she had developed pubic hair, and that's a sign of her womanhood. So I can use analogies like that to give a fair indication that probably is what a woman is.
Okay, I don't recall the Bible talking about pubic hair anyway. But
it does. I'm pretty sure it does. We'll check that one out.
Okay.
It's either Ezekiel or Judges 16, chapter 16, verse 6. This sort of stuff is usually saved in my head. It really annoys me when
I mean, well, I'm pretty sure I would have. What was the verse? Sorry.
60, verse 6.
Of which?
Which it says. I think it might be Judges. If someone can. Yeah, we'll put it on the screen for you, mate. Yeah, we'll make sure it's there. We're not trying to trick you or anything.
Right.
Like,
No, I believe you. But I mean, the thing is, you're that's like an allegorical.
Sure, it's allegorical, and it's not explicit. I'm totally fine. It's not an explicit saying you have to do this. I completely agree.
Right, so
but my point is, there is a world
you
apart.
agree that the Bible does not
explicit. Wait.
Condemn.
It does condemn the abuse of children explicitly. We find that in our Lord. Yes, our Lord explicitly condemned child abuse.
And so does Islam.
But what is abuse to children in Islam?
Okay, yeah. So
is under question. It's under question, right? Because under their point of view, you can have sex with a pubescent child, and that is not abuse in Islam.
So from what I understand.
Oh man. I'm pretty sure we've committed all sorts of blasphemy there, according to some Muslims. But anyway,
yes. I think it's only an English Quran anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's an English Quran.
Yeah. Anyway, so what was I going to say? Right. So, I mean, look. I think if you look at the example of Muhammad, it's clear that
you can have sex with a 9-year-old. I'm sorry,
and
but
it's clear that he wasn't, what you call a paedophile, because if he
was someone who had sex with a 9-year-old.
Right, and the issue here is, can a 9-year-old in certain exceptional circumstances be an adult? And I would
consent
say
to
yes.
Well, first of all,
no.
it actually goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. So one of the issues that many Muslims have with certain hadith, like the 6 most trusted books of hadith, is the fact that it says that the marriage occurred at 6.
Yeah.
But in theory, she was supposed to be old enough to give consent for that.
Yeah.
Do you think 6-year-old is old enough to give consent for marriage?
Wait. So okay. So you're saying that? Well. Oh wait. Say that again.
If you give a toffee, maybe.
Yeah, give us sweets maybe. But basically, there is a point of contention, mostly within what I find Hanafi Muslims, who are starting to challenge the reliability of certain hadith. Because if you say, Mufti Abu Layth makes this point, for example, he's not Hanafi, he's actually Shafi. No, he's Maliki, sorry. He says, look, in Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, and others, it makes it very clear that Aisha was 6 when she consented to the marriage.
Okay, right.
But according to Islamic fiqh and understanding, they have to be able to agree and give consent. Okay. And then we talked about how if you don't say anything, that's consent, which is another issue. But
your issue would be you don't think a 6-year-old would be
able to
mentally capable of consenting?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I mean, I believe the law in this country says that children can be criminally responsible when they reach a certain age, doesn't it? So that means they've reached an age of where they're capable
you know that's like nowhere near 6, but
I know it's a few years older
I'm
than
pretty
6.
sure like even 13 is still like we still charge people who commit crimes under the age of 18 as like juveniles.
Right.
Like,
okay, but let me put it this way: a 6-year-old is capable of talking, right?
Yes.
So it means they have a mind. It means that they have a will, emotions.
Yes, but
okay.
friends,
So what's the issue?
Okay. I don't think a 6-year-old probably fully comprehends death or fully comprehends, I don't know, guardianship or fully comprehends. Well, they wouldn't even know anything about sex. How would you even explain how they're even going to consummate the marriage?
I would argue that a 6-year-old would know what marriage is because they look at their parents and they say, okay, mummy and daddy, they're married, they're in a relationship.
Yeah, but wait.
Is.
Anyone who has a wife or a husband knows this, right? Yeah. When you marry, I mean, I don't know this, but my point is when you marry, I'm assuming that you're understanding there are certain responsibilities, yes? Like perhaps the wife has to maintain the home. Perhaps the husband has to go out and provide. I don't even know if a 6-year-old would even understand what work and production is.
Of course they would. They would know that their
they know that their dad goes out for a while and comes back. They wouldn't know
the house. They would know. Of course,
no.
They would know.
Well, they know how to clean the house. A 6-year-old.
This is ridiculous.
You think a 6-year-old understands just as well as, say, Khadija? You think that she understands just as well as Khadija how to clean?
How to what? Like vacuum a car?
A 6-year-old will know how to vacuum just as well as Khadija would.
Well, they didn't have vacuums back in those days. But
well, sure. But my point is if you...
They would know how to use a brush to sweep things up, sure. Of course they would.
Yeah, but even that, I would say, just as well as a fully grown adult woman who's... Like, really?
Yeah, well, what's your point? I don't
yeah, but my point is like, do you really believe a 6-year-old is just as able, like actually physically, to comprehend these things intellectually, as say, for example, even a 13-year-old?
Certain exceptional 6-year-olds would be able to.
No.
Man, I mean, you're in danger of venerating Aisha to the point where you make her above human.
Well, no, all I'm saying
you're basically saying she's a savant.
All I'm saying is that at 9, she
right.
was capable of consummating the marriage with Muhammad. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and you're also saying that at 6, she fully comprehended what that would mean. She fully comprehended that marriage is a lifelong decision.
I mean,
she fully comprehended that she would have responsibilities as a wife at the age of 6.
Do you know that the word nikah actually means sexual intercourse?
Yes, you can see that way.
Right,
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
So when you say, oh, she was married to him at 6, they hadn't had sexual intercourse.
Yeah, it's betrothal. But my point is, in order to do that,
so,
in order to do that, she would have had to have given consent.
Right,
and this is a difficulty because many Muslims realise that suggesting that a 6-year-old gives consent is a bit of a stretch.
So she gave consent to
being
married.
betrothed,
right.
and to accept that would be marriage, when it gets considered the age of 9.
Yeah, and then at 9,
right.
Like you said,
I would seriously doubt 6-year-olds would fully comprehend that. So, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't even know if I can give a more convincing argument to that than how many 6-year-olds do you know that you honestly believe fully comprehend the responsibilities and the difficulties and the issues.
They just look at their parents' example. It's as simple as that.
Do you believe there are six-year-olds today that could be aware of marriage enough to actually make a decision to marry at 6?
I believe,
to a grown man.
I believe that individuals like that, as I said, are exceptional. So I don't believe your average 6-year-old.
How exceptional
would
is
be
it?
able-
How exceptional is
It's
it?
like probably 1 in a million or something.
1 in a
And
million.
that's why I said that
See,
Aisha
again,
was a
you're
very
saying that
exceptional
Aisha is
woman.
the savant. Like
Well,
some,
yes, I am. What's wrong with that?
is it not just a savant? Like someone of exceptional intellectual
Yes,
ability.
because Muhammad and his companions were the best generation of people that ever lived. That's what we
But
do.
is it not obviously more overwhelmingly likely that it is actually just a 53, 54-year-old man choosing to have relations with a 6-year-old and then to marry, betroth her, and then to have her move into his home, or one of his homes, at 9 and have sex with her?
Instead of couching it in such derogatory language,
That's
why
not,
don't you
wait,
assume
nothing
that
about that
that's-
was derogatory. But what
Yes.
about, what did I say that was derogatory there?
So you talk about like a 50-year-old.
Is that correct? That's correct.
I believe he was of that.
I've heard Muslims say 53, 54. I just say either at this point. I don't know which one it is. But taking a girl, well, I
Okay,
mean,
the reason it's sorry.
I
the reason it's
can't even bring
derogatory
myself to say
languages-
woman.
The reason it's derogatory
Yeah.
language is because in most modern Western societies that would be illegal, and that would be
yeah.
that would be frowned upon to say the least.
Do you know
It
what?
would be-
Why would it be illegal?
Because what we have in most countries is man-made law rather than God-given law.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot of Islamic countries. Even then, they recognise that this probably isn't a good idea.
Right, that's because they're not following Sharia.
Right.
They're
So, is your
following
perspective then
human-made
that
law.
Islamic nations, if properly following Sharia,
They're not.
should allow betrothals at
The
any age?
So what I'm saying is, as you know, in Islam there is no quote unquote age of consent.
Yeah.
Right. It's judged on an individual.
Well, there is
basis.
explicitly no age of consent. Not just that it's not
Right.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Right.
explicitly,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's judged on a case by case basis whether that person is ready to get married.
Yeah, and we actually have descriptions of how you do that, by the way.
Right.
And it is actually to have intercourse with them.
No, you don't know what.
To know if they're ready for nikah, as you see it, as sexual relations.
Yeah.
The way that you do that is you try and have sexual relations
don't
with
know
her,
about that.
and if you cause her harm, you stop.
Well, again, this is not in the Quran or the Sunnah. This might be in some Sharia manual that you pulled up from somewhere. But again, that's not the consensus of the scholars. That's just
Wait, no,
one-
no, that
that's
is
just
that
one
is
book
no,
from
no.
one madhab. Because I told you the madhabs are not in
What the
agreement
things that
about-
I'm quoting
about
you
these
are
things.
your earliest and most trusted and well-respected
Give me
sources.
the reference and I'll look it up. We'll put it on your YouTube
I'll have
channel.
to find it for you.
But my point is, it's not consensus amongst Muslims. This is just one scholar might have said this, or one school of thought might have said this. But it's
Sorry,
not
a
agreed
school of thought is an entire branch of. A school of thought is huge. That would be like saying, whoa, yeah, Orthodox do this, but Protestants don't, so it's fine.
No,
That wouldn't be.
That's a good analogy because Protestants and Catholics, for example, are in disagreement about a lot of things. This is like a
Right, but if I were to say that, for example, it's no part of Christianity,
Yeah.
and we talk about a
But
particular
you
doctrine,
can't say that because the Bible does not explicitly condemn it. And
but again,
and
we
you
already know.
that historically.
Yeah, but an argument from silence isn't sufficient. Like, if Muhammad never mentioned this, and never did this, I would have no argument. You understand that?
Yeah.
It's only because he did, and he said it in the Quran, that I have an argument. There is nothing in the Bible that says, by the way, you can have sex with people that haven't had prepubescent. But there is in the Quran. That's why it's different. You cannot say, oh, well, it's not addressed in the Bible, therefore it's the same thing. No, it's not. It's really not.
Right, that's because in Islam we have there's a principle that if something's not explicitly said to be haram, it's halal, right?
Okay, sure.
So I'm applying that.
Wait, no,
to
no.
the
But in the
Bible
Quran,
because
it's
the Bible-
explicitly talked about. Right, in the Bible, is it explicitly talked about the age of consent?
Wait, sorry. There's no. So the Quran doesn't mention ages specifically in regards to marriage. That's the.
It doesn't mention what, sorry. It doesn't mention.
Sorry, could you ask?
Right, so what I'm saying is that in the Quran, Surah 64. Wait, I might got that wrong. Surah 65. Yes, that's the one. Yeah. It explicitly gives a ruling, because the Quran is effectively rulings in this regard, that for those of whom have not yet reached puberty, their waiting period, their iddah, is 3 months. Now, reason tells us that that would mean that they would have had to have been married, and because they have an iddah, they would have had to have consented, because we know from Surah 33, I think it's ayah 59, it might be something else, we'll put it on the screen. It says that an iddah is only needed if they have consummated the marriage.
Right, so like I told you, this might refer to women who, for medical reasons, don't have a period.
Sure, it can do, but it also obviously refers to children.
Not obviously, there's no obvious
Wait,
about it.
okay. Is every child someone of whom has not yet reached puberty?
That's one of the definitions of a child. Yes. That's not the only definition of a child.
Yeah, but my point is that you would accept that. If I told you there is a group of people, some who have reached menopause, some of whom are pregnant, and some of whom have not yet reached puberty, you would know who I'm talking. Yeah, there are 3 groups.
Exactly.
You would know that yes, that can include people who have medical problems, but it would also obviously include children.
So you've got prepubescent
This is what happening.
people. You've got
Yes.
post-pubescent, and
Yes.
you've got ones who
Pregnant.
have. Right. No, you said.
So those who are no longer having regular periods, they've reached menopause. There are those who are pregnant currently, so they're not either, and those who have not yet reached puberty. They have not yet started to bleed monthly. Right.
Well, I think it says those who do not have monthly courses. So it doesn't say do not. So leave the text doesn't say those who have not yet had monthly courses. It just says those that don't have monthly courses.
Yes.
So
Now,
like I said, there are medical conditions where a woman would not have.
and I'm fine with that. That can be included. But the obvious
So just
majority.
assume the best.
But that's, but that's basically just like doing this and reading the Quran. Listen, the obvious majority of people that would cover are those who are too young. That's why every single tafsir I can find about it, Tafsir al-Jalalain, the 2 Jalals, Tafsir Ibn Kathir, Tafsir, there are other ones. I got them on my phone. I can go through them with you. But the point is, I think if I did that...
Sorry, I think you said before that Ibn Kathir.
Thank you.
I think you showed me Ibn Kathir's tafsir of that verse.
Because it's the most accessible, because it's on Quran.com.
Yeah, but again, we follow Quran and Sunnah. Ibn Kathir, yes, he's a valid tafsir of the Quran, but it doesn't mean not everything that Ibn Kathir says is, in Christian terms, holy writ. It's not set in stone.
Right, okay.
So Ibn Kathir,
it's not scripture. I totally get that. But my issue is this. Why are you saying you are in a better position of knowledge compared to Ibn Kathir?
Well, okay, brilliant question. The reason for that is, like I said, in Islam we've got something called consensus, consensus of the scholars, right? So just because, yes, Ibn Kathir was a great scholar, he wrote a tafsir in the Quran, but just because Ibn Kathir said it, or Jalalain, or whoever, doesn't mean we have to take that as set in stone.
Okay, but do you have to take ijma? Do you take ijma?
Yes, and ijma is the consensus of...
The consensus then from the madhabs is that yes, this is the case.
Well, no, because you said that some madhabs say it's permissible, some say it's not.
No, that's not what I said, Lucas. I said one says it's not sunnah, but it is permissible, and it's not innovation.
Right.
So you can do it, just not sunnah. I don't know why they say that, because it's pretty obvious it is, but that's the Shafi reliance of the traveller one.
Okay.
If you go to the Hanafi ones, though, they do say it is sunnah. So either way...
Right. So there's a disagreement there. So it's not
Okay, but... No. The consensus they have is that yes, it is permissible at the least. That is the consensus.
Well, now, I'm going to look into that.
Fine, but if that's the case, though, will you accept that ijma, which you accept as a part of your deen, says that it is permissible to have sex with those who have not yet reached puberty?
Well, I'm obviously not going to say yes before I've looked into it. I'm going to look into it.
No. I'm saying if it did, though, if you did your homework and that's what you concluded, would you say that? Yeah, I guess I got to say that.
Well, look, bring me the evidence, and then I'll say what I think. I'm not going to discuss hypotheticals, and I'm not going to slander the Deen of Islam by saying yes, that means it's wrong, because I've not seen the...
Yeah, but all I'm saying is, if you do your own homework and you come to that conclusion, I hope you'd do something with it. I'd hope you'd say, wow, like, that's not good. That's not good,
Look, like I said, Islam does not condone the abuse of children,
But it depends what that is, because again, they're saying it's something different.
Yeah.
They're saying, no, you actually can have sex with children, just as long as you don't hurt them. That's their understanding of a loving relationship with your wife.
Right. Are you talking about the Reliance of the Traveller?
As a Shafi manual, yes.
Right, where it talks about the vagina being split open, that sort of stuff. Is that what you're referring to?
It may have that in it.
Right. So I mean, I mean, what are you referring to specifically? That's what I want to.
So it's N9.2 in the Shafi manual, which I'll try and find for you.
Take your time.
I mean, we'll put it on the screen. We'll give references to it. I'm not going to trick you out or anything.
He didn't say Quran said that.
Doo-doo-doo.
Quran said.
Okay, just for reference, here's my research.
Okay.
Here's every link to every tafsir that affirms it's referring to those who have not yet reached puberty.
Please show me one.
All right then, which one do you want to see? Let's do Al Jalalain. Do you want to do Al Jalalain?
Okay, but by the way, I just told you that we don't have to take what Al
Okay,
Jalalain
so
says.
would you accept this then, or do I need to go through them?
No, Chris. Okay.
I know you're saying that's not the end of
Myself,
it.
so-
I understand you're saying that's not the end of it. It's a different argument. I understand
No,
that.
I
But
told
would
you
concede-
the madhabs are not in agreement about this. Just because
There are not agreement about whether it's sunnah or whether it's just permissible.
whether
That's
it's
the
sunnah, and you're saying they are in agreement that it's permissible. But
Yes,
I need
at least.
I need you to prove
All right,
that
then,
to me
let's see if I have the
before
reference.
we
Hang on,
can,
okay, so this is Shafi one. Let's see. Hopefully this link works.
okay. But you're not going to prove that they all agree that it's permissible because you can't. You've not got
He
the
was very friendly.
evidence there.
Will this take me to the page, or am I gonna go deep dive?
Internet connection's a bit slow.
Come on.
Do you want me to hold your phone? Or
No, that's all right. Come on. I know the number, so I can find it for you.
I'll hold the umbrella for you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Come on, phone.
But once he become
Oh, here we are. This is the one I was referring to. The Hanafi, the Muqtaf al-Kurd. No, actually, this is the one I was referring to. I did two of them.
Okay.
It's the Al-Hidayah, the guidance.
Okay.
That's the one.
Sure.
Let's try this one. Come on, this one will work. Please load the P. Yeah? Come on.
I pray and hope.
So, a manual of Islamic law according to the Hanafi school.
Okay. Right. Looks like it's loading.
I wish and pray. I wish and pray it would happen.
Come on.
Remember, it's easy to be a secular here than to go to a country where it's strict. You know, it's very easy.
I'm going to be around for a while.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember off the top of your head what it
I
says?
couldn't. No, not exactly. Not enough that I could quote it without feeling I'm not doing a disservice to it.
Okay.
What I would say though is I can give you the references. We'll put them on the video, so
Okay.
you can do your own homework. You can load the document. It'll take you to it.
Okay, but
Yeah.
what was it saying, if you paraphrase it?
That there is a way in which having an adult can have sex with a child and it's permissible. That's to paraphrase it.
Okay, and like I said, this is not something that all four madhabs would be in agreement upon. So therefore, it's not.
I'm going to challenge that assertion. Now, to be fair, I've only done this with two madhabs so far.
Okay.
There's two more to go. So I've got the Malaki and the Hanbali. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the meantime, do your studies, do your
Yeah,
research.
but to be honest with you, if I found out
And
that
get back to me.
like half of the church
Yeah.
thought something like this, I would be horrified. Like if they were saying things like, "Yeah, you can have sex with children," I would genuinely be in a position where I would be in a lot of difficulty.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, you've brought up, random cases from Yemen and places where people, they're not, because of whatever circumstances, they're not following Islam properly, and they're doing terrible things, giving away their children in marriage, which are not ready to be married. Now, I totally agree with you, and I condemn those things. But what I'm saying is that that is not Islam. Islam is free from that. It doesn't. Islam does not condone those kind of actions.
No, wait, no. It does allow you to give your child away in marriage. I mean, your only argument really is that in most cases it never happens because no one is as good as Aisha.
What I'm saying is very few 9-year-olds are of Aisha's caliber in that sense, mentally, physically, intellectually capable of
So in
getting
practice,
married.
it would never be applied, or should never be applied.
In practice, it would be very, very rarely that you would get.
But again, what you've just done now is you've taken the fiqh and you've said, no, we're not really going to do that. That might be the best example. It might be the Sunnah. It might be what Muhammad did, and it might be in the Quran. But we're not realistically going to do that.
Okay, so the reason for that is, Chris, as you know, just because as Muslims, yes, some things are sunnah, but it doesn't mean we can do everything that Muhammad did. So, as you know, Muhammad had more than 4 wives.
Right.
Ordinary Muslims can't have.
Yeah, and it's very
So
clear in the Quran that there is a specific case where, like, he's not included in the 4, right? He can have as many as he wants, right?
Right. So just because Muhammad did something doesn't mean all Muslims have to marry 9.
No, you're not told to do it. You're told you can do it. It's permissible.
Yeah, as I said, with what's the word? With
Like, you don't have to go-
conditions. It's not unconditional, Chris. It's not. It doesn't. Just because Muhammad did it doesn't mean that every 9-year-old unconditionally is ready to be married without having to look into. Wait, is this 9-year-old capable of understanding what marriage is? Have they gone through puberty? There's lots of factors. So that's what I'm trying to say to you. You know, it's not like. It's not like an age of consent in Britain where, okay, you're 16 or you're 18, you can get married. You know, we're not going to, you know, the law doesn't prescribe. You have to look into this, look at the 16-year-old and assess whether they're ready for
But
marriage.
pragmatically speaking, how on earth would you even challenge this? Like, how would you be able to say which children are ready and which aren't?
So you mentioned there are conditions which, you know, every school of thought will have a Sharia manual which will detail.
Yeah, but theirs
how-
is like,
how you
in terms of like actually having physical nikah,
Yeah.
you try it, and if you cause her pain, you stop.
Well, no, because there's a contract of nikah. You don't having sex is not nikah. You know, there has to.
No, you earlier said that you can see it in a way as that.
So
Yeah.
what I said is the word nikah itself means sexual intercourse. Basically.
Yeah, sure.
However, you don't have sex with someone and then just call that nikah. It's a
Oh yeah. It's not
marriage.
zina. It's not like sexual fornication.
Exactly.
It's in the context of marriage. Yeah, we all agree with that. But what I'm saying
I
is,
don't get your point about you saying you have to try out whether the person.
no. There are thick manuals that I believe say that in order to know whether or not you can have sex with your wife, and she is underage, she's not yet reached puberty,
Yeah.
you have to try, and if you cause her pain, you stop.
Okay, well, as I said, you know, if you can bring up the
Yeah, I will.
debate it.
I will.
But what I would say to that is, you know, before you would get to that stage, there would be so many other factors that you'd have to have looked into that in practice, you would like never get to that point where, you know, the husband would have to be like, okay, wait, is she ready for me to have sex with her now? Because there would be so many other things that you would have considered before you got to that point.
Yeah, but there's a difference here. There's a
You
difference
know what a
between-
worst case scenario is, right?
Right,
The
right.
law has to cover all contingencies, so it has
Right,
to
that's
cover
that's
for,
what I
for
thought.
the
Wait,
worst case scenario.
I thought that, and I thought, hang on, because I'm very aware that just because something is mentioned doesn't mean it's described as good. I thought in the fiqh maybe that's the case, but the issue is that it says it's permissible. Like it literally says, yeah, you can do this. Like this is why it's giving these rulings.
The thing is, it would not say, you know, even if I'm not sure about, because, you know, there's
'Cause-
issues
wait.
of translation here as well. The thing is, it wouldn't say, you know, this is recommended or this is sunnah or this is something we encourage.
It does it
you
all the
to do.
time. You even
it
gave an
would-
example of divorce. It will be like, there's entire like chapters in these books about divorce, and it makes distinctions between what is bid'ah divorce, what is sunnah divorce. It's you've innovated in your divorce. What is the type of divorce that is permissible, but it's not great.
Right.
They make all these different things. They do it all the time.
Okay.
But my point is this: is that you cannot simply say that because in practice it isn't done much or it's not done at all in the modern day, does not mean it's any less good or bad. If I tell you there is a certain circumstance in which you can kill people, right? And you say, yeah, but in practice that rarely ever happens. That doesn't change whether or not the thing itself is good or bad.
Right, well, I mean, to use your, I mean, that's maybe not the best example because there are situations in which you can kill people. So what's
Right, yeah, but okay, so for example, if I said, technically, it is permissible in Christianity to go up to someone and kill them if they gave you the middle finger.
okay? Well, it's not.
Well, it's not, is it? But let's say for whatever reason it was in the Bible, right? And my argument to you is, yes, that's the case, but think about how often that happens in a modern world. People give the middle finger all the time and nothing happens.
Okay.
You wouldn't accept that as a defense. You would say, yeah, but the fact that it's there and said to be something you can do and a good thing to do it, you'd be like, that's wrong. And you know that's wrong.
Right. Okay.
You
Well,
know, so,
yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, if you look at the laws in the Bible, you know, okay, let's make a distinction, say, between secular law and divine law. So, you know, we've agreed that nowhere in the Bible, in divine law, if you want to call it that, does it ever explicitly condemn, you know, having sex with prepubescent
in the Bible.
children.
That's what
Right, in
you're
the
talking
Bible.
about.
Now, granted, perhaps church law and canon law and secular law later on
Sure.
might have refined that. But my point is, the actual text itself doesn't condemn it.
Right, but again, an argument from silence isn't going to work well. In the same way, again, if the Quran didn't say anything, I wouldn't have an issue. The problem is that it says something. You won't find anywhere in the Bible that says, like I said, by the way, you can have sex with someone who hasn't reached puberty. If you show me that in the Bible, then me and you would have a totally different conversation.
Yeah.
And I would probably be very shaken by that. But there isn't anything in the Bible that says, yes, by the way, explicitly, you can have sex with a prepubescent child. In fact, there are implications that say you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, like even a historical argument. You can make historical arguments that Jews weren't having sex with children like that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll. Do you mind if I sort of use my? Oh, seems to be.
Yeah, I know it.
Right. So.
Sorry about that.
Right. So I mean, what I can.
You're right, that.
Yeah. What I can suggest to you, and this is just my opinion, by the way, this is not Islam.
Sure.
But the way I would look at it is this. I would say, so you know that sex is a very powerful instinct for a lot of people.
Sure.
And even children, well, I say children, you can get to a stage where you're going through puberty and you're starting to get sexual feelings, right?
Yeah.
So we know that zina, fornication, is a bad thing, right?
Sure.
I think we agree upon that, right?
Yeah.
So what Islam is simply saying is people mature at different ages, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, to avoid the possibility of fornication, you don't want to put any you don't want to put restrictions upon marriage. So you don't want to make it where it's hard for people to get married.
Wait, but there are restrictions in marriage in both our religions.
Right.
In both our religions.
I'm talking about
Right.
a specific age restriction.
Okay.
Right? So instead, like I said, Islam judges. That's why Islam doesn't take puberty specifically as a condition of marriage, right? Neither does it take age as a condition of marriage. Neither does it take, it assesses all of those things holistically before coming to a conclusion about whether somebody's ready.
There are problems. So elsewhere,
Do you see how that's superior to, say, secular law, where you're setting an arbitrary age? Don't you see how that's superior? Because you're assessing each case on a case-by-case basis.
well, that's not going to work well for you because secular law does exactly the same thing.
Well, no, it doesn't. It sets,
No. What I mean
a
is,
specific age.
but it also changes depending on context and culture. So you could say, well, it's not individual. I'll grant you that it's not individual, but it still is adaptable.
Secular law is.
Yeah, I'm not arguing for the superiority of secular
not in a
law,
given place.
but I'm arguing that your argument, I think, is a little weaker there because secular law does adapt and change. I guess what you're saying is it should be left to the individual. In which case, I would say that the problem with it is, as long as it's understood that there are certain objective barriers that are non-transgressed. Now, in Christianity, we can do that because we believe that the objective barriers, objective values, I guess I should say, or duties, are things of which are written on our hearts that we understand, and sometimes they're revealed to us directly in Scripture. But there are other things that aren't. So, for example, I would say you have to have sex with someone who has at least achieved puberty. Now, I can't find that in Scripture that would explicitly say that, but I can give you allegories that are very suggestive of it. But I also think it's an objective standard written on heart. Oh, thank you. Like I owe you one at some point. He always buys me the tea. And I would take the exact same approach with Islam, but we're in different positions because Islam actually says, wait a minute, you actually can have sex with those who have not yet reached puberty, because you give them an iddah, because this is being revealed in the Quran for a specific group. Now, I've gone through that 1,000 times. I know the tafsir we know all these things, and I can give you references and we will do. I wonder though, because eventually I think you won't have an argument for this. I mean, if what I'm saying is true, would you change your mind?
Okay, so what I would say to this is, the reason why Islam doesn't explicitly stipulate going through puberty as a condition of marriage is because, like I said, it's one of,
Wait.
of many factors.
But that's not the issue. You're describing my faith in a sense. You're describing the fact that mine doesn't say explicitly an age or anything like
I'm talking
that.
about Islam.
But in Islam, it explicitly says that you can without puberty. In other words, you can do an 8-year-old that hasn't had puberty. You can marry that.
No, but there are so many other conditions around that.
Where are the conditions?
In practice,
But
you
from
would
the-
not, or you should not. If it does happen, then it's wrong. But you should not get a condition where where a girl who is. So I'm going to tie myself up and not sit. Mentally, where a girl who's not gone through puberty. What I'm saying is, okay, so I'll confuse myself.
Sorry, I don't know, man. Like, I don't see any way that I could rationalize this or get out of this. Like for me, like I couldn't. it's not a case of subjective cultural opinion.
Yeah.
The reason why is because I am convinced through my own faith and through my own observation of the world that there is an objective standard not to have sex as a man, a fully grown man, with someone who has not yet developed the capacity for sexual relations.
Yeah, right. And you know, to use the example of Aisha is that we've established you can't use that as an example of that. So you know,
What do you mean by that? Sorry, I can't use it as an example of.
Yeah, because we've okay. So I mean, you were.
Sorry, man. I know
Ridiculous,
it's
isn't it?
ridiculous.
So yeah. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, you know, look.
Good to see you, man. Hey, good to see you. Yeah.
Look, abuse of children, unfortunately, happens everywhere. In
Yeah, it's
Islamic
horrible.
countries,
Yeah.
in Western countries, it happens everywhere, right? We want to avoid the abuse of children, right? So, would not, you know, the thing is, look, I believe in this country, I might be wrong about this, but I believe they recently actually raised the age of marriage. It used to be 16 was the minimum age of marriage. They've actually raised it to 18.
I believe so.
Is that-
You know, there was actually a discrepancy between homosexual stuff as well.
Yeah.
In order to have homosexual sex, the minimum age was 18.
Right. I believe they reduced it.
They reduced it, yeah.
Right, so what we actually now have in this country, I know this might be a separate point, but I'm just trying to illustrate something. So we actually have a situation now where you can actually legally have sex, fornication, at 16, but you have to wait until 18 to be married. So that's how perverse the law has got.
Oh, don't get me wrong. One thing we will always agree on is the issues of postmodern law. Like we totally agree that these things are horrible. Like you know, I mean, I'm firmly of the opinion these things should be raised, not lowered. Largely because people today in this culture simply don't understand the responsibilities of marriage or what it means to have sexual relations. The issue again, though, is the world doesn't have a solution for this. Instead, it's found wanting and explicitly difficult to reconcile with objective reasoning, right, in terms of how we look at the moral world, right? And the thing is you've been a Muslim and you've been a non-Muslim and you were a Christian at one point.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
I think there is a Lucas somewhere
Yeah.
that knows that isn't on, and I think there's some part of you there because otherwise I'd have to believe that I don't know. Otherwise, I have to believe that when you weren't a Muslim, you were fine with that, and I don't think you would have been.
Okay, well, let me sexually transmitted diseases and
We had
whatnot.
the highest in Europe at one point for teenage pregnancy.
Right, okay. So why don't we look at issues like that, which are contemporary, which are present
Sure.
here today, and ask, okay, which has a
Yeah.
better solution to this? Modern secularism, Christianity, or Islam, right? And what I would propose is that Islam has the best solution to these problems. Because look, you're not seeing in modern day Britain, are you? Marriages where, you know, Muslim marriages where these sort of abuses are going on that you're talking about, right? These are isolated cases. They're not because of Islam. They're in spite of Islam. Which is what I'm trying to say. Because look, you've had, you've had terrible cases of paedophilia in this country. You know, Jimmy Savile. And many other cases. You know, which had nothing to do with Muslims. So to conflate Islam with paedophilia, there is no. What I'm trying to say is there's no causal link there.
Well, I'm actually not needing to make one. What I'm actually doing is I'm making an argument that in Islam inherently there is a moral value that says it is at very minimum permissible to have sex with those who are not yet reached the age of puberty. I can base that on evidence totally from the Deen. Don't even need to go out of it. I can do it fully within the Deen. And at every level, the Quran, the Sunnah, the life of the Prophet, and tafsir, and I can do it at every level. Once I've done that, the only thing that's left for me to do is to make a value judgment objectively about whether I think that's good or bad. And you are also in that position. You are called basically to look at that, to look at the evidence and to say, is that good or not? And to make your own mind up. I think that there's at least part of you that would say, I have reservations about that, at the absolute minimum. And I would be very surprised if you don't.
Well, so like I said, I believe that to jump from the Quran saying talking about the inner period girls for women who have not had puberty, and then to look at the example of Muhammad marrying Aisha, and then to look at the tafsirs of the Quran which say, that's what it says. There seems to be a very tenuous sort of a chain of thought or of assumptions that would lead you to think that in Islam it's permissible to marry prepubescent girls. It's a very tenuous.
Why is it tenuous if I can show you scholarly support from some of the greatest scholars? I can show you the specific Quran verse. I can show you others that give context to it. I can show you the Sunnah. I can show you from the 6 most authentic books of Sunnah. I can show you fiqh. There isn't anything left for me to investigate apart from just to be complete. Like I'll check out the other fiqh in case maybe by miracle one of them, maybe Malikis are like, no, this is terrible. Maybe it is. I'm open to that.
Right. Well, what they would say is they would probably say it's what's the word? It's not preferable.
But when they say it's permissible,
they would say that.
Shall we have a bet?
Well, I'm not a gambling man.
Fair enough. Well, neither am I. But if I was a gambling man, I'm willing to bet that Maliki fiqh from a variety of different sources at a variety of different periods of time had the view that it was permissible. At least.
Well,
I think you know that. You strike me as a logical person, and I know that you like logical thought, and I appreciate that because you're easy to speak to because of that.
Thanks. Well, you too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I can.
Well, what I like about you, by the way, is I like the fact that you don't use invective. I think Bob does a lot of this, which is why I would encourage you not to associate with him, if I may. You don't have to put this on your YouTube channel if you don't want. I just think that Bob, uses a lot of rhetoric, sort of anti-Islamic rhetoric, which I don't think befits a person like yourself who's trying to look at these things.
They said that flattery will get you everywhere. But look,
anyway,
my point is. Yeah, let's not bring it like Bob or listen to it.
Okay. I'm just saying,
my point is, I think you're arguing to argue the point. In other words, I think you've managed to do quite a unique thing and put yourself in a position where it's out of your experience,
Right.
And you're just looking at it from a logical, how can I defend this proposition? That's fair, and it's admirable that people can do that, and I try and do it as much as I can. But I also have to be real to who I am as a human, with experience, with things that are just grounded in life, and one of them is that I know that's wrong.
Right. But in modern day Britain, you don't see Muslim men marrying.
But again, pragmatism is not going to save you.
Neither do you see it in.
But my argument isn't pragmatic. I'm not trying to say you see Muslims everywhere doing this. No, in fact, I've never seen a Muslim in here do it. But that doesn't change the fact that the Quran and their deen, they teach it implicitly at every level. That has nothing to do with it. You can show me the best. You know what? There are some really nice Muslims. I've met some really nice Muslims. The fact that I've met really nice Muslims who wouldn't even think about doing something like this means nothing compared to the logical argument that there is indeed this case that Muslims are permitted in their deen to have sex with prepubescent girls.
Well, like I said, look, I'm willing to take on, the tafsir of Ibn Kathir,
a lot of tafsir. I show you all the
because I know, as a Muslim who follows the Quran and Sunnah, I know that if you look at the pure text of the Quran and the example of the Prophet Muhammad, and if it's not even about giving the Prophet Muhammad the benefit of the doubt. It's about looking what the actual texts of the Hadith say about
my friend,
the marriage to Aisha.
If it was about anybody else, if it was about me, if you read Hadith that were saying things about me that I did these things, an average Joe, would you honestly start saying the things you're saying? Would you honestly go into a kind of, well, hang on a sec, let's think about this. Perhaps the 9-year-old was incredibly mature for her age, both bodily and mentally, and at the age of 6 when she understood marriage well enough that she could give her informed consent. And when they did this thing, it didn't cause her any pain. Would you really do that? The only reason you do that is because it's part of a proposition that you want to defend. It's because it's Islamic, and it's because you're committed to the Islamic deen. That's why you're.
No. I'll tell you what it is, Chris. There's a thing in Islam where we say, basically, it's about looking at things objectively and not and not reading in your own assumptions.
But I've never read anything
and,
in.
21st. The cultural norms in, say, 21st
No,
century London,
the cultural
back
norms.
into 7th century
Wait.
Arabia.
The cultural norms at that time.
Yeah.
There was a law, I believe, in the Roman Empire at this point, or slightly before, that said you had to be 12.
Right. So
even at
you're
that
encouraging
time-
pushing up to 18 or beyond. So
That's my own opinion.
Do you see where your line of thinking? Look, I've heard people say that 25 should be, the minimum age for consent to marriage.
I could agree with that.
Theoretically, you could push it up to however high you want
Sure,
to.
sure.
My point is, Islam recognises that these are merely, opinions of men. This is the consensus of human beings. It's not
The specific
divine
legal age,
law.
yes, but the age of which is morally good, it actually makes an argument that puberty is not required for that. Why? Because the Sunnah. Muhammad did it, and Muhammad is the greatest of examples in Surah 33, ayah 21.
But the Sunnah doesn't say that Aisha hadn't gone through puberty. That's my point. My point is
My argument
you're
there,
reading into-
my argument is there are hadith that do say that she was playing with dolls, and the argument is that they're not permissible for someone of and you can actually look at tafsir on that, and they say
It's not permissible for adults to play with toys.
yeah,
Okay,
with icons on them. The issue is icons. You can find Islam Q&A where people ask this.
Those
Yeah.
laws came later because the thing is, when it comes to dolls, for example, and images in general, I believe the scholarly
I believe this
opinion.
would have came from Muhammad. Muhammad would have said it's impermissible to play with things with icons in them.
Yeah, but there's something about whether the images have eyes painted on or not. So if
Wait,
you had,
no,
like, a
it's
drawing of
to do
a-
with all icons. I
or a
believe
doll.
that Muhammad said you should remove icons and things like that out of your house, and things that have I think it is faces or something.
Yeah, but it comes down to whether they have eyes painted on them or not. I know this is this might seem like an arbitrary point, but the thing is, look, you can't conflate playing with dolls to whether a girl has come from puberty. I mean, that's ridiculous, and I'm sure you recognise that.
But wait, it's a cumulative argument, because the other point, which I think is actually a much stronger argument, is the fact that overwhelmingly most 9-year-olds have not either started puberty or completed it. They definitely would have completed
Right, so
puberty.
that's why I told you Aisha is
Right.
an exceptional peace be upon her.
see.
May Allah be pleased with her. Sorry. That's why I say her and Muhammad, peace be upon him, they're exceptional. This is not just because it's.
But probabilistically, that's incredibly unlikely. You're now basically putting yourself in the realm of, you're so to speak, you're winging it. Okay, you're winging a prayer. Hopefully, Aisha was just incredibly unique. But in overwhelming likelihood, I don't think she would have been.
willing, for the sake of intellectual honesty, to at least consider that.
Oh, I've considered it, but again, it goes against my common sense. It goes against probabilistic.
Just because you've never seen a 9-year-old who was married.
Yeah, but my point is,
You wouldn't see that. You wouldn't.
I went through the options,
in-
right? I chat with Muslims.
in London.
Yeah, I understand.
In 2022.
I understand that, but I have gone through the options, because when I first came here, I talked to Muslims very quietly and sincerely. I asked them what are the best reasons to think she was exceptional, and I heard many arguments. And one of them were things like the culture or the environment at the time was in such that it would put more pressure on you, and you could argue kind of like an evolutionary case, and therefore she would have been more mature.
That's just someone's opinion, though.
But, it is ultimately.
you notice
and
I
I
never
looked at
used
that.
that
Oh, that's fair enough. And I had different problems with that thing. But you haven't used it, that's fine. But another thing is, I thought, well, maybe diet. Maybe there's something special about the diet there or something. And I looked into what diets would have been like there. And then I thought, hang on a second. First of all, the diet in the Hijaz is not particularly great or varied.
Right, you've probably heard the
But
one
then-
about it's very hot in the.
Yeah, there's also
Arabia,
there's
therefore-
those things.
I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
about those things. I've
No,
heard people say that, but
well,
my point is,
yeah.
Also
hot in Spain. It's also hot anywhere near the equator.
Right, there you
Yeah.
go. So look, I don't consider those valid arguments. My position is that she was, 1 in a million, 1 in 1,000, whatever you want to say, a case of a girl who had gone through puberty and was intellectually and spiritually ready for marriage. Right, that's my opinion.
You'd also have to say that she would have been that way at 6, when she was intellectual enough to give consent to the marriage,
So it's-
to the
at-
nikah,
at six-
not the sex, the marriage, the betrothal.
Right, she would have been like. I mean, you've mentioned, they were waiting for Muhammad to get together the
The bridal
I-
gift.
I don't know- I don't
It's
know
called
the
like a
details of
sad. there's an Arabic word for it that I forgot. It's in the history of Al-Tabari.
Right. So I mean, that's a separate issue, but I would say, the principal reason why, the marriage didn't take place, the consummation of the marriage didn't take place at 6 was because she was most likely not ready.
Okay, my thing is this. If we have explicit writings from people who were closer to the time than we are, who said the reason was this, and then we have what we are reasoning about what could have been the case, I would say the first is stronger.
Right, so you said
Right.
that the hadith say, which I've not had a chance to look
It's not a hadith, it's
History of Al-Tabari.
Al-Tabari wrote his own history, and Al-Tabari, I believe, was 10th century. Oh, no, 9th to 10th century.
Okay.
So you're talking about like 200 years after the case, but
Yeah.
it's still the earliest, well, one of the earliest we can get.
Right, which says that, Muhammad didn't have the bridal gifts.
Yeah, he's telling narrations, which I guess kind of are hadith for this, narrations of Aisha, who's saying, we moved to this place and he had not yet consummated the marriage. My father asked him why he had not done it, and Muhammad responded with he hasn't got the bridal gift. Abu Bakr gave him the bridal gift, he then gave it to Aisha, they consummated the marriage. She actually says where it was, like the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe there's even a hadith that say that Abu Bakr was actually reluctant to give Aisha in marriage, aren't there?
Oh yeah, there is one, yeah.
And I don't know the
I think
reason.
it's one, it might be more than one. But
Why?
They don't say all of them. Well, you are my brother, but you are my brother, is what he responds with.
But they weren't blood brothers.
No,
He
they
said
weren't
brother,
brothers. They mean brothers in the religion.
Yeah, and they probably were of the
Which
same.
is actually kind of how
probably were
Muhammad
related,
responds.
but- Sorry?
Were they? They
They
weren't
most
related.
likely would have been.
Really?
At least, I mean, when I say related, I mean I don't necessarily mean first cousins or whatever. But,
Yeah.
related in they would have been of the same tribe or whatever.
You know what the damage is biologically from first cousin marrying, sex? Like if you have, the damage of that, like scientifically.
genetic
Yeah, genetically, yes.
Well,
Do you know that we have it in this country because, as you know, we have a large proportion of our population come from not Palestine, from Pakistan. Yeah, and it's a well-known thing that there are lots of marriages that are through cousins.
Right.
And it's actually not that bad if you once,
Yeah.
like if it just happens once. But if you have a history and tradition of it, and it continues going on through a line,
Yeah.
it brings serious health issues.
Right, so I believe that, again, this is a cultural thing. I believe there is a hadith from the Prophet where he specifically encouraged people to marry outside of their family. So again, this is going back to permissibility.
But it
so
is
yes,
sooner though,
cousin
isn't
marriage,
it?
Well, no, give
Well,
me
I
an
mean,
example.
I have to check the fiqh, but I mean, from my understanding from hadith, hey, good to see you, man. Good to see you. From my understanding of the fiqh, sorry, of hadith, he did indeed marry his cousin. Zainab was his cousin, right? And of course, everything Muhammad does. Cheers.
Yeah.
Good point. Well, I ain't got my hood up. But anyway, is good. Surah 33, ayah 21. He is the best example.
So this is the thing. I mean, going back to permissibility. So
Yeah.
cousin,
He's back. Yeah.
So cousin marriage is permissible, but it's not specifically encouraged. In fact, Muhammad specifically encouraged people to marry outside of
That's
their
fine.
tribe,
That's fine.
outside of
I-
their
you need to understand. I don't need to go beyond my limits.
just
I
a
don't need.
cultural thing. I mean-
Well, I agree that there is an element of that, but I think you could easily trace it back. Like in the Quran, it gives you a list of those who are prohibited to you.
Yeah.
They are counted as your family, right? So you can't have sex with your mum, your dad, your sister, your niece, and all this stuff.
And your first cousins are not among.
Yeah, right. And also he himself engaged in it. Now, that doesn't mean that you are told you have to go out and do it. Doesn't mean that you should prioritize that. Does not mean that even there aren't necessarily bad things about it. But what it does mean is that the greatest moral example did it, and it is permissible explicitly in the Quran to do it if you wished.
To marry a first cousin.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm glad we've at least moved on from paedophilia. I mean, this is not.
I try and be respectful and not use the P word. Like, you won't hear me
probably
say
won't
that.
Publish it on your channel, will you? Because it
What?
might
Because
get struck or something.
I don't monetize my channel, so don't worry about it. It's
fair
fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll try and include as much as everything we talked about. I don't think P word is a problem.
Okay.
I hope it's not a problem. But anyway,
Because it's funny, I think even if your channel's not monetized, I think if certain words or phrases come up, they
possibly.
will.
Possibly.
try
I think
and take
they make it like not suitable for kids or something.
something like that. Yeah, there's various things.
I know who
Which
to
is
blame.
ironic. But,
Yeah.
but anyway, sorry. So yeah, I mean, cousin marriage. I mean, I believe isn't it by the law in this country, I think cousin marriage is illegal, isn't it? Or
I don't actually know. I assume it is, but I haven't looked into
I
it,
know
so I
by
don't know.
church law made it illegal, but it was only in I don't know, one of the popes in like I don't know, it might have been the 10th century, for example, made it illegal. But before that, it was permitted.
I don't know about that.
So
I'm
again,
afraid.
you know, in the Bible, there's no. So like you would say, well, the Quran. Well, the thing is, the Quran.
Hey, good to see you, man.
I
How are
got
you?
3 points from that last
You got 3 points.
our debate discussion.
Nice. You want to talk about Trinity in the Quran?
I enjoyed that one.
You enjoyed it? Good.
That one.
You didn't like that one?
That one I already taught you.
Ah,
I exposed
but you wanted
that
to talk about Trinity. I
I
love to
exposed
talk about
that one.
Trinity.
But that one,
Can I
yeah,
just
exposed
finish up? I'd love to have a chat with you. Could you finish up real quick?
Yeah.
Should we end it here? Because we've been on for a while. Are you alright with that?
Yeah.
Good.
Talk for a
Um,
long time.
do you want to do a wrap up?
This
Do you want to talk
guy,
to the camera?
this guy, he
can if you
lies
want,
with
man.
his title.
When you say a wrap up,
Just say like, I don't know, I think Chris is wrong because of X, Y, Z or whatever. You get your opinion.
I don't play for the.
Well, I'm not playing for the camera. It's just your chance to summarise. But if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Okay, so I summarise and you summarise.
Yeah, go on then. If you want to, just
So to wrap up, I would say, you know, we've had a very long discussion. I think we've covered a lot of ground. But I think what I would say in conclusion is, I would say, if we look at, you know, the pure text of the Quran and the Sunnah, you know, without making recourse to what the Sharia manuals of the four madhabs say, or even what the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir and others would say, we have no reason to believe that, you know, Islam specifically, allows for the marriage of prepubescent girls. However, I would concede that if one does, look at the Sharia manuals and the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, one would think that. So, in reply to that, I would say, a Muslim doesn't have to follow any of the four madhabs specifically. He can say, for example, that he's on the path of the Salaf, and he can look at the Quran and the Sunnah and say, the Quran and the Sunnah don't say that prepubescent girls are ready for marriage, and he can look at the example of the Prophet's marriage to Aisha and say, well, you know, despite what people might say and the way that they might look at it, you know, she was playing with dolls, whatever, doesn't necessarily mean that she was prepubescent at the age of 9 when they consummated the marriage. So that's what I would say in response to that, basically. And I would, you know, just encourage you. You know, I think you've been a very fair debater here, and I think we've covered a lot of ground. I think, you know, you've been very fair, and I've tried to be fair to you. And I would just encourage you, you know, keep looking into Islam and don't allow yourself to be, you know, influenced even by Muslims who might be getting these sort of things wrong. And just try and be objective about it, as I'm sure you will be. So yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Lucas. I appreciate that. I would just like to say thank you again, because you actually took the time to talk to me, which is, you know, not too easy at the park sometimes. And I really appreciate that, and I do actually believe you're being sincere. I just really hope that when you look at these things, when you look at the tafsir, the fiqh, that you understand that there is an ijma among fiqh that this is at the very least permissible. I don't think your arguments are convincing, because ultimately, if there is an iddah period in the Quran for those who have not yet reached puberty, then it is permissible to have sex with them. If Muhammad had sex with Aisha when she was 9, and most overwhelming, because you said about 1 in a million 9-year-olds would possibly have been ready for that, but the overwhelming majority wouldn't have, then I think, statistically speaking, Aisha wasn't ready for it. I think that's a reasonable thing to derive from the data. But either way, thank you very much, and God bless, and hopefully I'll see you at some point. God bless.
Here's your umbrella.
All right, thank you.